Huh?
Don't work so hard. Hard work is not what's going to make you successful. But there are 3 factors that will directly affect your odds of seeing success. And the wealthiest and most successful people in the world have all mastered these 3 factors. And after this video, you'll understand exactly how to go about mastering them by yourself. So in today's video, you'll come to realize 3 things. 1, why billionaires don't actually work hard. 2, why online entrepreneurship is fake. And 3, why you'll need an empty room to be successful. So let's jump straight into it. Factor 1 is actually really quite simple. It's how you work. How you work is the most important metric that affects your success. And simply working hard will not get you there. You see, the reason why hard work isn't the answer is almost laughable. It's so obvious that most people can't even believe that it's true. So what is it? Well, it's the fact that pretty much everyone works really hard. And so if hard work was the only differentiator, well then pretty much everybody would be successful. But they're not. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, no, this generation in all of its entirety just isn't hardworking. And even if that's true, it's entirely besides the point. Don't you think that the guy who's running the local corner grocery store and has been doing so for 20 years, working 16-hour days, is a hard worker? Don't you think that the mechanics who repair hundreds of cars per month are hard workers? And have they not been doing this hard work long before you and I were even born? What about the construction workers who built the very building that you're sitting in right now? Are they not hard workers? Of course they are. And that's exactly the point. Most adults work hard. Now, whether that means wasting away in a harshly lit cubicle for 8 to 16 hours a day or laying bricks from dawn till dusk, every person with a job will tell you they're working hard. Let me explain. Even if an accountant decided to work twice as much as everybody else, they wouldn't make more money from it. Sure, maybe they'd be promoted a little faster or even get a small raise. The point is, even if their output increased 5x, their salary wouldn't. And that same concept goes for almost every single job out there. And that's exactly the problem. That's exactly why hard work is not the key. These days, you can't just simply work your way out of a shitty situation. And that's why 78% of Americans are still living paycheck to paycheck. Meanwhile, every online business guru is telling you to just simply work hard and stay disciplined, as though that's the be-all, end-all solution. But so how should you work then, if not hard? You see, there's another method that is far superior to hard work. It's a system that I like to call strategic sprints. And it's not my system, I just decided to call it strategic sprints. And this is something that all the world's most successful people have realized. And no, I'm not talking about those who have made a few million online, I'm talking about the real money. People like your Warren Buffett, or Jeff Bezos, or your Richard Branson. They have all internalized this concept of strategic sprints. So what are strategic sprints? Well, to understand how they work, we must first understand how focus works. You see, most people can really only focus efficiently for 4 to 5 hours per day. Now, if you account for how dopamine addicted people are nowadays, I'd guess it's even a lot less than that. So if you really only have 3, 4, or maybe 5 hours of quality focus per day, why waste another second past that working if you're not even being productive? That time could have been spent with friends or family or exercising or even just reflecting and letting your mind wander. The thing is, humans aren't machines. It's not just that we're not meant to work 8, 10, or 12 hours per day. We're also not made for it. That's exactly why we built machines to do it for us. The point is that once you've used up your daily quota of quality focus, the marginal gain that you'll get by doing a little bit more work is simply not worth the extra time expenditure. And that's why most successful people work in these strategic sprints. I mean, just look at Jeff Bezos. He wakes up without an alarm every single morning. He does that despite knowing that perhaps he'd get more done if he slept less or worked more hours. But he also knows that that will mean that the quality of his work would suffer. Therefore, it's simply not worth it. He even admitted that he likes to putter and take his time in the morning, which is something that I can personally relate to. He works out daily and only does high IQ, cognitively demanding tasks in the morning when his brain and mind is still fresh. And one of his famous quotes read, "By 5 p.m., I'm like, I can't think about that right now. Let's try again tomorrow morning at 10 a.m." So if one of the world's most successful entrepreneurs can't work and focus efficiently for more than 7 hours per day, what makes you think that you can? Warren Buffett follows an almost identical work schedule. Now, here's the other key. Science tells us that not only can we not focus more than 4 to 5 hours per day, we also can't do it for too long in one go. And it's with that in mind that I've designed my system of strategic sprints. In essence, working in strategic sprints allows you to do a full days of work in 5 hours or less. Let me explain how. As you all probably know, our body follows a 24-hour circadian rhythm. And in fact, our focus follows a similar rhythm. Only it's 90 minutes and it's called the ultradian rhythm. That means that we can only really focus for 90 minutes or less at a time. And even that 90-minute interval isn't really 90 minutes because it usually takes us 5 to 10 minutes to really get into that zone. And once done, the brain will need 10 to 30 minutes to defocus and recalibrate. Now, defocusing means not focusing on anything, and that includes your phone. If you do a 90-minute work block or strategic sprint, and you then follow that up by a 30-minute phone break, that's not really defocusing and recalibrating. That's just another type of focus. So that's why I have 3 strategic sprints per day with 10-minute intervals. And what does that equate to? 5 hours of as much focus as humanly possible in the shortest span of time possible. And with that, I'm able to accomplish more than most people do in a 12-hour workday. All right, so now that you know how to work, we need to understand what to work on. Because the truth is, you won't get anywhere working correctly on the incorrect thing. And so that's why the second factor of success is what you work on. Factor 2 is choosing that vehicle that will drive you towards success. But before we break down what you should work on to succeed, we need to define something very important. We need to define what success means in this context. Of course, success is subjective, but when we talk about it in the context of business, I look at 3 metrics. 1, what's your relative degree of freedom? Can you travel wherever you want, or do you have to clock into an office every morning? 2, how quickly can you earn your financial freedom? And 3, how high is your level of impact? Now, in most scenarios, you can only hope to achieve 2 out of those 3 metrics. And that too is a success. To be honest, all of these are individually markers for success in my opinion. So let's break down what determines whether or not your vehicle will make you successful. Because to be honest, it all boils down to one very basic principle. You need to find something that allows you to have an asymmetrical outcome. That means that your input, which is the work that you do, needs to have an output that is greater than that initial input. It needs to have some sort of ripple effect where the outcomes are amplified. So what does that look like in practice? Well, for starters, you can't be trading your time for money. That would naturally mean that there's a one-to-one relationship between your input and your output. And so that already rules out a lot of typical corporate jobs. But it certainly doesn't rule out all of them. The key is that your remuneration, which is the money that you make from your work, needs to be independent of the time that you spend doing the work. That's, in its simplest form, what asymmetrical outcomes are. In theory, this allows you to work less whilst making more. Well, there are 3 potential solutions. Solution 1 is entrepreneurship. This is perhaps the most obvious solution, but it's also the riskiest one. For every startup or entrepreneurial endeavor, there are massive financial risks. Whether you bootstrap the company yourself or you raise money with investors, there's money at stake. There's also a real time investment where you may not see a return on your investment for years. Not to mention the fact that every entrepreneur has to undergo immense amounts of stress. And the fact that everybody needs to be paid before you. You're entirely responsible for your own ability to provide. So this is not really for the faint of heart. And that's the reason 90% of startups fail. But there is a silver lining. If you do well in entrepreneurship, you'll do exceptionally well in life. And you've probably seen dozens of videos about how to get started in entrepreneurship, so I won't really bore you with it. I will say this though, I don't think everybody should aspire to be entrepreneurs. And I know that's contrary to what you hear from a lot of these online entrepreneurs, and I'll tell you why. 95% of online entrepreneurs these days aren't actually real entrepreneurs. They're just glorified freelancers, glorified business owners, but they're not entrepreneurs. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just not inspiring or entrepreneurial. They're just doing well with the tried and tested business models, which is fantastic, but there's nothing novel about it. There's no innovation, no depth. And this is where you'll find everybody starting their new social media marketing agency or their e-commerce dropshipping store. Again, I'm not saying that it's bad, it's just not what entrepreneurship is about. Entrepreneurship at its core should be about maximizing your impact. If I were to define it, I'd say it's about solving a problem that the market either didn't know it had or a problem that the market didn't know how to solve. And no matter how you square it, dropshipping pet hairbrushes or whatever else product from China just isn't that. Now, the person who created that product is definitely an entrepreneur, but bringing it to market just isn't innovative. Again, it's a link in the big chain of the economy, but it's not entrepreneurship. So I say that not to dissuade you from entrepreneurship, just to make you realize what it truly means. For example, Airbnb only became profitable after 8 years in business, and Uber has never been able to maintain consistent profitability. The next solution is finding what I call an asymmetric career. And I know everybody on the internet is telling you to escape the matrix or escape the rat race, but that simply isn't the right solution for everybody. Or maybe it's just not the right choice right now. Regardless, there are many careers that will make you conventionally successful, and it all hinges on an asymmetric outcome. These will be the upper echelon of your regular jobs. I'm talking about things like real estate development, venture capital, software engineering, investment banking, and even big law. But there are two huge caveats with careers like these. One, you'll likely have to sacrifice lots of time climbing the ladder before you get to that point of asymmetric outcome. For example, it may take many years before you get substantial carry from your VC firm, and it could take 10 years or more before you become an equity partner in a law firm where you start receiving a share of its profits. But it's not always like that. If you're a talented software engineer, chances are you can climb the ladder a lot quicker. Regardless, in any scenario, you're committing to a multi-year journey before you reach that point of asymmetric results. Two, you'll have to sacrifice most of, if not all of your freedom to achieve this level of success within these career paths. In investment banking, you're working 100-hour weeks on the regular. And even if you're not being productive for 100 hours a week, you'll still have to stay at the office for that amount of time. That's not the case for real estate development, but there are pros and cons to all of these careers. Point is, you'll need to sacrifice a lot for the career progression required to succeed in any of these fields. And so again, that means that you need to evaluate what success is worth to you. You need to figure out if initially sacrificing the time and location freedom is worth the eventual financial freedom. Because I can tell you, I've met a lot of people who are making 6, 7, 8, even 9 figures in some of the careers that we just mentioned. Ultimately, they all provide a level of security. And that security means that your success is almost guaranteed if you follow the right steps within that career path. And that's why you've always heard your parents tout for you to get a job. But of course, things aren't quite the same as when our parents were growing up. Back then, any job could set you up pretty nicely. But rising inflation and cost of living have made it so that privilege is only reserved for a handful of career paths. Luckily, there are now many career options on the internet. The two most common ones that can be hugely profitable are sales and copywriting. However, I would actually disqualify sales here because it lacks that asymmetrical result that we're looking for in terms of success. It's still a great skill, no doubt. In fact, I suggest most people spend a little bit of time learning sales, but it's not the thing that will create success for you as far as career paths are concerned. Copywriting, on the other hand, has that asymmetrical aspect to it. You can spend a few hours writing something and in return make thousands, sometimes tens of thousands, based on the outcome that your writing yields. And also gives you the location freedom that the internet provides. But again, most crucially here, you're not paid based on the amount of time you spend writing. So that can be a great option for somebody wanting to excel in an online career path. Even with that, there's still one issue though. You're still lacking that aspect of immense impact. I mean, do you really care about whatever emails you write for that e-commerce store? Probably not. And so again, here you'll find that you're only achieving 2 out of the 3 success metrics. You're lacking impact. However, there is a third way with which we can achieve success in all 3 metrics. You have the level of impact, which is normally reserved for real entrepreneurs to enjoy. And it has the asymmetry of an asymmetric career, not to mention the freedom of an asymmetric online career. So what's the third way? You might have heard me mention it before, but since then, this solution has gained a lot of popularity. I'm talking about IPGA, the very business model that around 8 months ago, we invented, pioneered, and coined here on the channel. Ever since making my first videos about IPGA, we've personally mentored hundreds of people on it that have succeeded immensely. And furthermore, you may have seen a lot of people making videos about IPGA, some of which have even repackaged it as info product operator, IPO, something like that. Now, IPGA, as we've made it, stands for Info Product Growth Agency. And it's really the only way that you can maximize all three measures of success. Let me explain how. To understand why IPGAs are so good, you need to understand the economic backdrop to them. It's really quite simple, and I'll keep this quite brief. Education equals the most important thing ever. If you don't think so, well, then this simply won't work for you. But realize there's a reason that most successful people are lifelong learners. Anyway, the point is, the educational system hasn't evolved much since the 19th century. We still go to class, sit in chairs, and study outdated curricula. This is simply wrong. So what's the solution then? Education by the people, for the people. There's no shortage of people with incredibly valuable knowledge that just have no way of sharing it with the thousands of people that could benefit from it. And it goes without saying, that's how info products were born. Info products, courses, even books are all really the same thing. It's productized information. But there's only one problem. Let's say somebody is the greatest mother on earth, and she has the knowledge required for other mothers to be equally as good. Well, the problem is that mother doesn't know how to turn that expertise and that knowledge into a course, and let alone how to share it with people. Well, that's where you step in. As an IPGA, our job is to launch, manage, and scale these info products. To be more precise, our job is to enable people with valuable expertise to share that expertise with the thousands of people who could benefit immensely from it. Essentially, as an IPGA, we're scaling the impact of our clients, and as a result, scaling our own impact too. In the process of running an IPGA, three very distinct things happen. One, you maximize your impact by literally contributing to the next evolution in education. Two, you get an asymmetric outcome and result because you're paid based on the results you deliver and not the amount of time you put in. And three, you can quickly progress in this business model whilst retaining all your freedom. So in short, IPGA is the only online business model that meets all three success criteria. And how do we make so much money with it? Well, with an IPGA, you're paid a portion of each of your clients' course sales. This can range from 5% all the way up to 40% of your client's course profits. In short, this always equates to thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars in profit share per client per month. And again, that outcome is entirely independent of how much time you put into the work. And then by virtue of the model being online, you obviously have both time and location freedom. Just look at Kieran, who made $5,000 upfront when he signed his first client a couple months ago. And it doesn't stop there. Since then, he's done the same thing multiple times. And keep in mind, these 5K payments are just the upfront for even initiating the corporation. After that, he'll be receiving 10 to 40% profit share on his sales that he will help his client achieve on their course. Now, if you want to learn more about how thousands of people like you are getting rich with IPGA, then I'll drop a link below this video to another YouTube video where I explain in detail how everything works. It's free, and again, it's literally a YouTube video. You're already here. Anyway, let's move on. The third and final factor that is keeping you from success is who you work with. I mean, obviously, the business partner that you choose or don't choose to work with will make or break your business. But know that many business models don't even require a business partner to even get started. IPGA falls under that category. The point is, when I say who you work with is crucial, I mean three things. One, literally who you're working with. Two, the environment you're in. And three, the extended network that you're in. This means that you need to spend time with people who enable your success. Inevitably, you're not going to be spending 24 hours a day working. As I said before, most people have 3, 4, maybe even 5 hours of focus per day. And so obviously that leaves a lot of time for us to fill with other people in our life. So who you spend the rest of your time with is just as important as what you work on and how you work. Obviously, being surrounded by people that want the best for us is a great thing, but we tend to forget that it's also immensely important that the people we surround ourselves with want the best for themselves. Now, that doesn't mean that you need a circle of alpha male winners, but it also means that you're going to have to avoid people who are going to drag you down. This means that if you're serious about succeeding and making money, you need to critically analyze who you're spending time with. Ideally, your closest friends will be on the same mission as you, or at least as driven to create impact and success as you are. That way, you can encourage and help each other grow. And this plays perfectly into the third point that a lot of people seem to forget. It's equally as important to be in the right extended network. That means that you always need to be seeing success around you. You need to find role models to look up to and to one day exceed. It's sort of like the saying, don't take advice from the people whose lives you wouldn't want to live. Which, by the way, goes for your parents too. Now, once you find those people, whether it be on the internet or in real life, you'll come to realize that seeing is believing. And you notice this all through history. Once somebody sees a person doing something, they believe that they can do it too. That's what happened with the infamous 4-minute mile. Previously, it was thought that the 4-minute mile was humanly impossible, that it was just too fast for our bodies to be capable of achieving. But then, one spring day in Oxford in 1954, Roger Bannister ran a mile in 3 minutes and 59 seconds. And not long after, others began running 4-minute miles too. Moreover, soon enough, his record was broken altogether. All because seeing that it was possible to run a 4-minute mile made other runners believe that they could achieve the same thing. And that's the importance of your network and environment. Because of the internet, we're all exposed to so many people on a daily basis. So just be sure that you expose yourself to the right influences and not the toxic ones. Now, there's also the more obvious stuff when it comes to the environment, like where you actually work. For example, for the last 7 months, I've been traveling around with my girlfriend. We left our apartment in Milan and just took to the road, really embracing that digital nomad lifestyle that comes with making money. But soon after starting our travels, I realized that whenever I found myself in a really beautiful location, my focus started to suffer. Great views were simply too distracting for me. I found myself just staring into the distance instead of actually working. So it came to a point where wherever we were traveling, regardless of how beautiful the villa might have been, I just find the most boring and bland, wide-walled room in the house and just lock myself in there and work for 4 or 5 hours per day. So it came to a point where wherever we were traveling, I just find the most bland and boring room in the house and simply work from there. So that's the thing that helps me focus. But for you, it could be the opposite. Maybe working with a great view would actually inspire you and thus enable you to focus more. More than anything, you just need to make sure that your environment is clean and clutter-free, because your workstation is really a reflection of your mind. A cluttered and messy workspace will always be a distraction. On the flip side, a clean workspace will enable your brain to focus optimally. But sure, some people can just work in any environment, any time of the day, anywhere, but that's not going to be the case for most of you. I know it certainly isn't for me. So those were the 3 factors that you can implement in your life to maximize your odds of seeing success. And with that, I'll see you next Sunday.